I came home from work to find my front door wide open, strangers carrying boxes inside, and my dad standing there like a general leading troops. When I asked what the hell was going on, he smirked and said, "Surprise, your brother and his pregnant girlfriend live here now." That was the moment I called the cops on my own father. My name's Daniel. I'm 28, and I've worked every hour I could in the last 5 years to buy my little house outside St. Louis. It's not some mansion, just a 3-bedroom starter place, but it's mine. Every brick, every board, every ugly beige wall, paid for with my sweat. I sacrificed nights out, vacations, and even a serious relationship to make this happen. This house is my sanctuary. My dad, Richard, 58, has always been reckless with other people's time, money, and belongings. Growing up, he'd lend out my tools, volunteer me for free labor, even borrow cash from my birthday cards because, according to him, family shares everything. My mom, Denise, 55, never stopped him. She'd guilt-trip me into silence with lines like, "Don't be selfish, Danny, it's just stuff." Then there's my younger brother, Kyle, 21. He's the golden child. Dropped out of community college after 1 semester, bounced between part-time jobs, then knocked up a girl named Brittany, 20, after dating her for barely 3 months. They'd been living with her parents until last week when things blew up. From what I heard, Brittany's dad finally snapped because Kyle wasn't paying a dime in rent despite working at a warehouse. So imagine my shock when I pull into my driveway and see a moving truck backed up to my house. My father, using the emergency key I gave him for actual emergencies, had let them in. He stood there barking orders like, "Put that in the bigger room," while Kyle carried boxes and Brittany waddled behind him, clearly 6 months pregnant. I froze for a moment, then marched to the door. What the hell is this? My dad barely looked at me. "Daniel, your brother needs help. Brittany's parents kicked them out. They're family. They'll stay here until the baby comes. You've got 2 extra bedrooms, and family helps family." I couldn't believe it. "You broke into my house and moved people in without asking me." "You're being dramatic," he snapped, waving me off. "This is what family does. Stop acting like some greedy landlord." Brittany's eyes filled with tears. Kyle shifted from foot to foot like a guilty kid. My chest was on fire. Years of resentment at my father's generosity with my stuff boiled over. "No," I said, my voice cutting like glass. "They're not moving in. Not today, not ever." That's when my dad lost it. He started yelling about how I'd forgotten my roots, how I was selfish, how could I let a pregnant woman sleep on the street. His voice echoed down the block, neighbors peeking out of windows. I could feel my blood pressure spiking, but instead of yelling back, I pulled out my phone. "I'd like to report a trespassing in progress," I told the 911 operator while staring my father dead in the eye. "Yes, several people are moving into my house without permission." The color drained from his face. Kyle froze. Brittany burst into sobs. "You wouldn't dare," my dad hissed. "Watch me," I said. "You have 5 minutes to get everything back in that truck before the police arrive." They scrambled. Boxes went flying back into the truck. My dad was cursing me out the whole time, his face red like a boiling kettle. By the time the cops showed up, my driveway was chaos. I calmly explained everything, showed them proof I owned the house, and requested a formal trespass warning against all 3 of them. The officers backed me up. They told my dad, brother, and Brittany that if they set foot on my property again without permission, they'd be arrested. My father sputtered like a man who couldn't believe the rules applied to him. When the dust settled, I changed all my locks, installed smart cameras, and plastered "no trespassing" signs on every fence post. I wasn't about to give anyone a second chance at hijacking my home, but the backlash was instant. My mom left me a tearful voicemail calling me heartless. My aunt texted me that I'd shamed the family. My dad's message was simple: "You're no son of mine." And Kyle? He texted me that I'd ruined his life and endangered his unborn child. Not one of them apologized for breaking into my home. Not one admitted I had a right to decide who lives in my house. Instead, I became the villain. And that was just the beginning. I thought after the cops escorted them off my property, things would quiet down. I was wrong. That night, my phone lit up with dozens of messages. "Mom, you broke your father's heart." My aunt, "How dare you humiliate us like this?" Kyle, "Brittany's crying nonstop. Her stress is on you." I ignored them all. But then came the kicker, my dad's voicemail. "You're no son of mine. When that baby's born, don't you dare show up." I told myself I didn't care, but deep down, the betrayal stung. Still, I wasn't backing down. I'd worked too hard to let them bulldoze me. The next morning, my security system pinged me at 6:05 a.m. Someone was standing at the edge of my property. I checked the live feed and nearly dropped my coffee. It was my mother. She stood there holding a giant cardboard sign that read, "Have mercy on your family." She didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there like some tragic protester, hoping neighbors would notice. And they did. I spotted blinds twitching, cars slowing down. By 7 a.m., I was mortified. I stepped outside and called over. "Mom, what are you doing? Go home." Her voice cracked. "They're sleeping in their car, Daniel. In the cold. How can you live with yourself knowing your brother's baby is suffering?" I clenched my fists. "Mom, they're in that car because Kyle refused to pay rent at Brittany's parents' house despite having a job. That's not my problem." Her tears spilled. "But you have the space. You have the means. What's the point of success if you won't help family?" I didn't budge. "The point is, I earned this success, and I'm not letting anyone steal it. Not Kyle. Not Brittany. Not Dad. No one." She sobbed louder, like she was auditioning for a soap opera. After 2 hours, she finally left, but not before announcing that the entire family was disgusted with me. By afternoon, the rumors had spread. I got a call from my grandmother, the one person I thought might see reason. I braced myself for another lecture. Instead, she shocked me. "Good for you, Daniel," she said in her no-nonsense voice. "Your father's been reckless his whole life, and Kyle is just following in his footsteps. Don't cave to their manipulations. If they want to play house, they can figure it out without hijacking yours." For the first time in days, I felt relief. But that relief didn't last long. That evening, Kyle showed up at my workplace. He wasn't allowed inside thanks to badge-only access, but he waited by my car. Security called me before I even saw him. He was pacing wild-eyed. When I finally approached with 2 guards flanking me, Kyle exploded. "You're destroying my life. Brittany hasn't stopped crying. Her stress is bad for the baby. Do you even care?" I stayed calm. "Kyle, you had options. You chose to drop out of school. You chose not to pay rent. You chose to have unprotected sex. Those were adult decisions, and now you're facing adult consequences." His face turned beet red. "We're your family. Where the hell are we supposed to go?" "There are shelters," I said. "There are jobs. There are programs for pregnant women. Or you could try, here's a crazy thought, paying rent somewhere like a normal adult." He sneered. "You're pathetic. Some big man with a house, but no family. You'll die alone." Security escorted him out before things got physical. I added his license plate to the building's watch list. That night, I found out from a cousin that my dad was spreading wild lies about me. According to his version, I'd thrown a pregnant woman onto the street, changed my locks while Kyle and Brittany were still inside, and laughed while Brittany sobbed. None of it was true, but the story spread like wildfire. Several relatives blocked me on social media. I thought it couldn't get worse. But then came the ambush. My mom invited me to meet her at a coffee shop, just to talk. Against my better judgment, I agreed. When I walked in, I froze. It wasn't just Mom. It was Dad, Kyle, Brittany, and my Aunt Carol, all sitting at a big table like it was some kind of intervention. Carol smirked. "Sit down, Daniel. This family needs to fix you." I almost walked out, but something in me wanted to face them. So I sat. One by one, they read statements. Mom cried about how she hadn't raised me to be heartless. Dad talked about family legacy and honor. Kyle accused me of being a selfish monster. Brittany pleaded about her baby's future. I let them finish. Then I pulled out my phone. With one click, I played the security footage from the day they tried to move in. My dad using the emergency key, Kyle hauling boxes, Brittany following behind. "Let's be crystal clear," I said. "This isn't about me being heartless. This is about Dad breaking into my house and trying to move people in without permission. That's a crime. You all went along with it. And instead of apologizing, you're sitting here staging a circus." The table went silent. I leaned forward. "Kyle, you're 21. You made choices. You chose Brittany. You chose to get her pregnant. You chose not to pay rent. Those choices are yours. Not mine. Not my house's." Brittany's lip trembled. "But the baby," I cut her off, "will need parents who can provide. That means you and Kyle figure it out. Not me." Carol hissed. "You're materialistic. All you care about is your stupid house." I laughed coldly. "Materialistic? For not letting people steal my material? That's rich. Where's your offer, Carol? You've got a 4-bedroom house since your kids moved out." Her face went red. "It's not a good time." "Funny," I said. "It's never a good time when it's your money or your house. But somehow, I'm the villain for saying the same thing." I stood. "Let me make this simple. Anyone who shows up at my property again will be arrested. No exceptions. Play games if you want, but I'm done playing nice." And with that, I walked out. But deep down, I knew this was far from over. For a few days after the intervention ambush, things were eerily quiet. No protest signs. No screaming voicemails. No ambushes. I almost let myself believe they'd finally gotten the message. But with my family, calm never lasts. On Saturday morning, I checked my security cameras while making coffee. Motion detected. My stomach dropped. A car I recognized instantly, my cousin Brandon's pickup, was parked in my driveway. Brandon, 30, was always the neutral one in family feuds. He'd nod along with everyone, but never take sides. At holidays, he'd say things like, "Let's just keep the peace, guys." So when I saw him dragging duffel bags toward my porch, my blood ran cold. I bolted outside. "Brandon, what are you doing?" He froze like a kid caught shoplifting. "Daniel, man, hear me out. Kyle called me. He said you two made up. He told me I could drop their stuff here for storage." My chest tightened. "You're lying. I never said that. Kyle fed you a story and you just believed it?" Brandon's face reddened. "He said you'd calm down. He said you felt guilty about Brittany being pregnant." I shook my head in disbelief. "So you just pulled into my driveway with their bags without checking with me?" He tried to laugh it off. "It's just storage, man. What's the big deal?" "The big deal," I snapped, "is that this is exactly how squatting starts. You leave a few bags, then suddenly it's we already live here. Get this junk off my porch. Now." Brandon muttered under his breath, but he hauled the bags back to his truck. Before leaving, he turned and said, "You know, Daniel, you've changed. Grandma always said family comes first." Funny. I shot back. "Grandma also said not to let people take advantage of you. Guess you only remember half the lesson." I thought that was the end of it. But an hour later, my phone buzzed. A text from Brandon. "They're at my place now. Don't bother thanking me." My jaw dropped. Brandon had taken them in. The one relative I thought might stay out of it had become their savior. For a split second, I felt relief. At least they weren't my problem anymore. But then reality hit me. Brandon's place was only 10 minutes away, which meant this nightmare was still practically in my backyard. By that evening, I started hearing from neighbors. Apparently, my father had gone door to door on my street, spinning his version of events. One neighbor told me he claimed I'd locked a crying pregnant woman out in the cold, and that any decent person would have helped. The betrayal stung, but what came next was worse. On Monday, I got home from work and noticed something off. My mailbox was stuffed to the brim, not with letters, but with flyers. Cheaply printed, bold letters screaming, "Daniel turned away his pregnant sister-in-law. Family or failure." I flipped through the stack in horror. Someone, probably my dad and Brandon, had plastered the neighborhood. Flyers were taped to lampposts, pinned on bulletin boards, even shoved under windshield wipers. My neighbors gave me strange looks all week. A couple avoided eye contact altogether. One older lady even muttered, "Shameful," as I walked past. I wanted to scream. I wanted to burn every flyer I could find. Instead, I took pictures of them all for evidence. I knew I had to confront Brandon. So I called him. "What the hell, Brandon? Flyers? Seriously?" He sighed. "Look, man, I didn't make them. That was Uncle Richard. But you've got to admit, it's a bad look. A pregnant woman living in her car while you've got 2 spare bedrooms? People are talking." My voice shook with rage. "You actually let him drag you into this circus? You let him use your place as a headquarters for slandering me?" Brandon hesitated. "I'm just trying to help. They need somewhere to stay. Brittany's about to pop any day now. What was I supposed to do? Leave them on the street?" I laughed bitterly. "Exactly what you just accused me of. Funny how I'm the villain for protecting my own house, but you're a hero for letting them freeload at yours." "Don't twist it," he snapped. "You've got money, Daniel. You've got space. They came to me because you're too stubborn to care." I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. My hands were trembling. That night, I sat in the dark, staring at my security feed. Every shadow looked like Kyle sneaking around. Every car driving by felt like another ambush. And then, just when I thought I couldn't be more paranoid, it happened. At 2:14 a.m., my camera pinged again. Motion at the back fence. I tapped the live feed. It wasn't Kyle. It wasn't Dad. It was Brandon, climbing over my fence with a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. When I saw Brandon scaling my back fence at 2:14 a.m., I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me. But the camera feed didn't lie. He was lugging a duffel bag and moving like a burglar. I didn't hesitate. I hit the panic button on my security app. Sirens blared from the alarm system, lights flashed across the yard, and my phone immediately dialed the monitoring service. Brandon froze mid-step like a raccoon caught in a spotlight. He dropped the bag, bolted for the door, and started pounding on it. "Daniel, open up. It's me." I stayed inside, phone to my ear. "Yeah, I need police. There's an intruder on my property right now. I have him on camera." Within minutes, red and blue lights painted the neighborhood. Two patrol cars screeched into my driveway. I stood at the window, watching as Brandon tried to explain himself with wild hand gestures. When I finally stepped outside, one officer turned to me. "Sir, do you know this individual?" "Unfortunately, yes," I said flatly. "That's my cousin, and I have footage of him trespassing on my property at 2 in the morning." Brandon's eyes were wide. "Daniel, come on, man. This is ridiculous. I wasn't breaking in. I was just trying to leave Kyle's stuff here. He told me you'd be asleep and wouldn't mind." "Wouldn't mind?" I barked. "You scaled my fence in the middle of the night like a thief. You set off my alarms. You dragged me into this circus without asking. And now you're blaming Kyle?" Brandon turned to the officers, desperate. "He's my cousin. He's family. This is just a misunderstanding." The cops weren't buying it. One asked to see my footage. I pulled up the app and showed them Brandon climbing over the fence. That was all they needed. "Sir," the officer said to Brandon, "you're under arrest for trespassing." The second those cuffs clicked, Brandon exploded. "You're sick, Daniel. Arresting your own family? For what? A fence? Some spare rooms? You're going to regret this when nobody shows up at your funeral." I didn't flinch. Better an empty funeral than a house full of leeches. The officers shoved him into the back of a cruiser, but the chaos didn't stop there. Within 20 minutes, my parents were on my front lawn. My mom screaming, my dad red-faced and spitting threats. "You've lost your mind," Dad bellowed as neighbors peeked from behind curtains. "First Kyle, now Brandon. Who's next, Grandma? You brought this on yourselves." I shot back. "You keep crossing boundaries and acting like I don't exist. You think because we share blood you can treat my house like a hotel. Not anymore." Mom collapsed into sobs. "You're destroying this family. All because you think walls and doors are more important than people." "No," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "I think respect is more important than manipulation. And none of you respect me." The cops told my parents to leave or face arrest too. My dad cursed me out the whole way to his truck, shouting promises that I'd pay for this. My mom clutched her chest dramatically, like she was the victim of some tragedy. When the cruisers finally pulled away with Brandon in the back, I stood in my driveway under the flashing lights, adrenaline still hammering in my veins. I felt like the villain in my own neighborhood. And then the phone call started again. My Aunt Carol screaming that I destroyed her son's life. My uncle sending texts about how real men take care of family. Even my grandmother, yes, the one who had supported me before, called, voice trembling. "Daniel," she said, "what you did tonight will tear this family apart." I closed my eyes. "Grandma, this family tore itself apart the moment Dad used my key to break into my house." But the biggest shock came the next morning. I opened my email and saw a message with the subject line, "Notice of legal action." It was from Brandon's attorney. They were suing me, claiming false arrest, emotional distress, and public humiliation. I nearly dropped my phone. The cousin who scaled my fence at 2 in the morning was now trying to drag me into court for protecting my own property. I laughed out loud, the kind of bitter, broken laugh that makes your chest ache. But then I stopped laughing because I realized something terrifying. If they were willing to take this into court, what was stopping the rest of my family from piling on? My father had already lied to half the relatives. Kyle was desperate enough to crash my work parking lot. And Brandon, well, Brandon had just shown he'd do whatever it took. This wasn't just family drama anymore. This was war. The lawsuit hit me like a brick to the face. Brandon's attorney filed for false arrest, demanding damages for emotional trauma and public embarrassment. I sat at my kitchen table staring at the email, half convinced it was some kind of prank. But nope, it was real. I forwarded it to my lawyer immediately. His response was short but reassuring. "Don't panic. You have video evidence. This won't hold up." I wanted to believe him. Still, the idea of my own cousin dragging me into court while my parents cheered him on was sickening. And the family wasted no time turning it into a circus. My Aunt Carol posted on Facebook, "My son was wrongfully arrested by his own blood. Pray for our family during this injustice." The comments were filled with sympathy. Strangers were calling me a monster. One even messaged me directly, "Rot in hell, you cold-hearted freak." I was drowning in rage, humiliation, and disbelief. But then things got worse. 3 nights later, at exactly midnight, my security cameras went off again. I pulled up the live feed expecting raccoons. It wasn't raccoons. It was my father. And he wasn't alone. He was standing at my gate with a locksmith. At midnight, I rushed to the door, phone in hand, recording. "What the hell are you doing?" I shouted through the locked storm door. Dad didn't even look guilty. "I'm taking back what's ours," he growled. "This house belongs to this family. You've proven you can't handle that responsibility." The locksmith froze, realizing he'd been tricked. "Wait, you're not the homeowner?" he asked. I am the homeowner. I barked, holding up my phone. And this man is attempting to commit fraud. I've got the deed. I've got cameras. You'd better pack up your tools before you're accessory to a crime. The locksmith didn't need more convincing. He muttered something about not getting involved and bolted to his van. But my dad didn't leave. He slammed his fists against my gate, spitting fury. You think you can hide behind locks and lawyers? You're a disgrace. That baby is coming, and you're going to regret turning your back on your own blood. My neighbor's lights were flicking on one by one. Curtains pulled back. The whole street was witnessing my father's midnight meltdown. I called 911 right there on speakerphone. Dad screamed until the sirens cut through the night. When officers arrived, I showed them the video footage of him with the locksmith. They arrested him on the spot for attempted trespassing and attempted fraud. As they hauled him off, he looked at me with pure venom. You'll regret this, Daniel. You'll regret it. My mother showed up the next morning, pounding on my door with mascara streaked down her face. How could you, she sobbed. Your father was just trying to help your brother, and you put him in handcuffs like a criminal. I snapped. He is a criminal, Mom. He tried to change my locks at midnight. What part of that sounds normal to you? She covered her ears like a child refusing to listen. You're sick. You're sick. Then she stormed off, shouting over her shoulder that I was dead to this family. I thought maybe, just maybe, that arrest would be the breaking point. That finally, they'd realize I wasn't bluffing. But I underestimated their insanity. 2 days later, I came home from work and found my driveway blocked by a massive sign staked into the ground. Bold red letters read, Daniel locked his family out. Don't rent or sell to him. It was signed, Concerned Community. I yanked it out of the dirt, shaking with fury. Who the hell plants a smear campaign in someone's own yard? My cameras had the answer. Kyle and Brittany, caught on video sneaking onto my property to hammer the sign in like it was some political protest. I forwarded the footage to my lawyer and to the police. Kyle got a warning, but I knew it was only a matter of time before he pulled something worse. And then it happened. The following Friday, I woke to frantic pounding at my door at 3 a.m. My phone buzzed with multiple missed calls. I opened the door to find my neighbor, Mr. Harris, pale as a ghost. Daniel, he gasped, you need to come quick. Your brother, he's trying to break into your garage. I ran barefoot into the cold night, adrenaline surging. Sure enough, there was Kyle, crowbar in hand, prying at my garage door. Brittany sat in their car across the street, sobbing. Kyle, I shouted, drop it right now. He spun around, wild-eyed. We have nowhere left to go. You're forcing us into the streets. You're forcing yourself. I yelled back. You've had choices. You've had offers. You're not entitled to my house. He raised the crowbar like he might swing. My neighbor was already on the phone with police. I braced myself, my whole body shaking. Within minutes, sirens cut through the air again. Officers pulled into my driveway and swarmed Kyle, disarming him before things got violent. They shoved him into the back of a cruiser while Brittany wailed from the car. I stood there barefoot on the concrete, heart pounding out of my chest, staring at my brother behind the glass. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. This wasn't desperation anymore. This was war without rules. And I was outnumbered. Kyle's arrest should have been the end. A crowbar in my garage at 3 a.m. was enough proof for anyone that I wasn't overreacting. The cops hauled him away, and I stood barefoot in the driveway with neighbors whispering about how my family drama had officially gone nuclear. But it wasn't over. Not even close. The next morning, my phone blew up. Mom, Dad, Aunt Carol, even Brandon somehow bailed out of jail and had the nerve to start a family group chat. The name of the chat? United Against Daniel. They weren't ashamed. They were doubling down. Messages poured in like bullets. You ruined Kyle's life. The baby will be born homeless because of you. Blood is thicker than deeds and paper, you heartless traitor. I wanted to throw my phone into the river. But then one message froze me cold. It was from Kyle himself, sent from some prepaid burner phone. If you won't let me in, I'll make sure you regret it when the baby comes. I forwarded it straight to my lawyer and the police. Restraining order violations, threats, attempted break-ins. I had a mountain of evidence now. Still, I couldn't shake the dread. And it all came to a head the night Brittany went into labor. I found out through a cousin who still talked to me. Brittany's in the hospital, she whispered over the phone. It's bad. The baby's coming early. The whole family's here. I almost hung up. But something in me, curiosity, guilt, maybe just morbid fascination, made me drive to the hospital. I kept to the edges of the waiting room, unseen, watching the circus unfold. There they all were. My mom pacing, sobbing like a martyr. My dad ranting at a vending machine, red-faced and furious. Aunt Carol comforting Brandon, who looked pale and miserable. And Kyle. Kyle sat in a chair, head in his hands, muttering about how I destroyed his life. Hours passed. Finally, a nurse emerged. "Healthy baby boy," she announced. Everyone cheered. That's when Kyle spotted me across the room. His eyes lit with rage. "You don't belong here," he shouted, pointing at me. "You're not welcome near my son. You're dead to us." The entire waiting room turned to look. Neighbors, strangers, even hospital staff. My face burned with shame. But before I could respond, Brittany's mother walked out of the delivery room. She was holding the baby, tiny and pink, wrapped in a blue blanket. And her voice cut through the chaos like a blade. "You," she said, glaring at Kyle, "are not taking this baby home. Not tonight. Not ever. Not until you prove you're fit to be a father. Daniel's right. You've done nothing but drag this family into hell." The room went silent. My jaw dropped. My mom gasped like she'd been slapped. Brittany's mother marched past Kyle and handed the baby to a nurse. "I'm filing for emergency custody with Brittany's consent. And if anyone here tries to interfere, I'll have hospital security throw you out." Kyle lunged from his chair, screaming, "You can't take my son." 2 security guards tackled him before he could get far. My dad tried to rush to his defense, but another guard shoved him back against the wall. My mom shrieked. Aunt Carol fainted. And me? I just stood there, numb, watching the family that had tormented me finally implode. When the dust settled, I walked outside into the cold night air. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Brittany herself, sent through her mother's phone. "Thank you for not enabling us. You were the only one who forced Kyle to face reality. I see it now. The baby deserves better than chaos. I'm choosing better." For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was brutal. Kyle was slapped with another restraining order, probation, and mandatory counseling. My dad faced charges for the locksmith stunt and nearly lost his job. Brandon's lawsuit evaporated once the footage surfaced in court. Aunt Carol tried to rally support online, but her GoFundMe was reported and taken down. And me? I finally had peace. My house was safe. My career rebounded. I even got promoted after my boss found out about the insane family flyers and said, "If you can survive that, you can survive anything." But the most shocking twist came a month later. A package arrived at my door, no return address. Inside was a handwritten note from Grandma. "Daniel, you did what the rest of us were too weak to do. You broke the cycle. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting what you've built. This family needed a villain, and you played the part. But in truth, you were the only hero." Underneath the letter was her jewelry box, the one she'd promised to leave me when she passed. I held it in my hands and realized something. Being the villain in their story saved me from being a prisoner in mine. And that baby? He'll grow up knowing at least one person in this family refused to let chaos win. That's the end of today's story. Did things turn out the way you thought, or were there some surprises along the way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. If you enjoyed this journey, don't forget to hit the like button. And if you haven't joined the community yet, now's the perfect time. Subscribe and turn on notifications so you're always the first to catch new stories. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next adventure.